we're a little bit behind. But hello, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming. I know it's probably close to finals. We also have finals as well, but we wanted to create this little info session for you guys just to create an open discussion about law school applications, and really just talk about the process and make it more transparent for you guys. So I will first go ahead and start with little introductions from all of us. My name is Alexa. I'm originally from Los Angeles, and I am a 3L at GW, which is so crazy of me to say because I still feel like I'm like 18 and still in undergrad. But the reason, I guess we'll all state like why we went to GW. The reason why I wanted to go to GW was first because, my brother went there, and he really helped me put GW on my radar. And I think it's really helpful to know people that also went there as well. But secondly, just because of the opportunities and just being in DC has been so much fun. And I've really enjoyed the faculty here. So it's been a really great experience, and that's why I chose to go. And I'll kick it off to my other friends and members of the club.
I guess I'll go. So, hi everyone. My name is Osniv. I'm serving as co-president of ALSA with Alexa this year. Shushan was a past president
Okay, good
last
thing
year.
there's a bunch of people with.
And I'm originally from the Boston area. I'm also a 3L. And why GW? Well, I wanted to be in the DC area. I think it's a nice balance between city, but it's it's easy to navigate, not too big. And I can't emphasize enough to the externship opportunities afforded to students that go to law school in DC. I've been able to work for judges. I know plenty of friends that work at agencies, and you're only competing with other people in the DC area during the school year. And the Supreme Court is not too far. White House isn't too far. You just feel like you're in the heart of things. Yeah, so I've really enjoyed my time, and I also can't believe it's almost over. Nice to see everyone.
Hi, everyone. I'm David. I'm a member of Armenian Law Student Association. I live in Washington, D.C., but originally I'm from Armenia. The reason why I went to George Washington Law School is first because I live in Washington, D.C., and it is one of the, if not the best, one of the best law schools in Washington, D.C. And for those who are going to apply for this law school, I would definitely recommend, because first, the location is amazing and it's a great school. Professors are very smart. I'm doing LLM in business and finance law. And if there is someone who is interested in applying for LLM, I would say that there are two options. Either you can apply through LSA, LSAC account, or you can submit your documents in person. Law school is very flexible. You can start from September or from January. For example, in my case, I started from January. Other law schools are not so flexible. They are allowing starting the studies only from September. So it's a great law school. I believe you will see my email address. If you have any specific questions, feel free to reach me out. Thank you.
Thanks, David. And I'm Shushan. It's my last semester at GW, and I came here because of the particularly good opportunities this school offers for data privacy law. And as everyone has mentioned, it's really nicely located, and we have a lot of good opportunities for externships and jobs, which we will discuss later on why that's very valuable. And we're really excited that you all joined us today for this discussion.
Sorry, I was muted. Okay, thank you guys for quick intros. Now we'll get into the presentation. I'll do a quick rundown of what we're going to be talking about. First being preparing for applications, what to keep in mind. That will kind of be the nitty gritty extracurriculars, GPA, LSAT, kind of the boring stuff, but need to get through that. After that, we'll be completing the application, which is mainly going to be personal statements. I saw some of you guys had posted in the Google form talking about personal statements, how long it should be. So I'll go over that. After that would be post applications, where you should decide to go, how to choose different schools, why GW, which is going to be the most important part, our favorite part, and then questions will open up to you guys at the end. And also keep in mind, I put little tip boxes for you guys throughout the presentation. So if you guys focus on those little tip boxes, because those are things that I think all of us, we wish that someone told us before. So hopefully that would be helpful for you guys just to keep in mind throughout the presentation. Okay, first tip box for you guys. So first, studying for the LSAT, I know we have different people and different grades here. So I think it's important to just quickly touch upon it. Some of you guys may have already taken the LSAT, so this won't apply to you as much. But for those studying for the LSAT, the most important thing, I think the threshold question to ask yourself when studying for the LSAT is figuring out what your study habits are. What kind of studier are you? Do you need an in-person class? Do you need a physical instructor? Do you like to self-study on your own? Do you like to be in your own little corner and you don't need an instructor telling you what to do? Figure out what kind of study you are, because I think that's gonna determine how you wanna go. Do you need to take a class? I personally took a class because I liked the physical instructor and I needed someone to answer my questions. And I think knowing what kind of studier I was helped me figure out all the other pieces to the puzzle. I will need to, okay. Oops, oh no. Moving on from figuring out what your study habits are, giving yourself plenty of time. It's okay if I took the LSAT twice for transparency because I wanted to do better and I needed to give myself time in order to do that. So starting earlier than what people recommend, I think is going to be helpful, just depending on where you want, what your target score is. And part of that is figuring out, are you going to be working full-time, part-time while you're studying? Are you still going to be a student? Budgeting your time accordingly to create this routine, which gets to that third point, is going to be super helpful, because you want to be able to continue to practice and practice and practice and follow that up with review and analysis. My instructor that I had told me that the best way is to figure out and create a Google sheet of all your incorrect answers and have one column with the incorrect question, a second column with the answer as to why you got it wrong. And if you keep an ongoing Google sheet, you can start to see the mistakes that you're making. And by just explaining it and typing it in the Google sheet as to why you got it wrong, you're studying at the same time. So I thought that was a super helpful tip to know going forward. I've listed some prep courses for you guys to consider if you guys are on the fence. That leads to my tip box. If you're on the board of a pre-law society, which I was on, you can get up to a 50% discount for taking these prep courses. I didn't know that. I found that out through the grapevine, and I thought that I would share it with you guys just in case. I don't know if it's still going on, if it still applies. If not, call and ask. You have nothing to lose by calling and asking one of these prep courses. So that was just a quick rundown of studying, preparing for the LSAT, figuring out where to go. Also, Shushan, Azni, David, please interrupt me if you guys have any other tips as well that I've missed. Okay, we'll move forward. Extracurriculars, GPA, LSAT. I think this is like, I guess, the meat of the presentation, if you will, which is my least favorite part. But when it comes to this, I think starting off with extracurriculars, then I'll get into like the numbers and data. When it comes to extracurriculars, you could have done a whole bunch of things in undergrad, high school, whatnot. It's going to be important for you to parse out the most relevant activities that speak to your legal skills, whether that be research, writing, activism, leadership. I think those are going to be the most important. And it's important not to just do a dump of everything that you've done, but be intentional about the activities that you're choosing to speak to who you are as a person, how you take initiative, how do you deal with with pressure, with stress, with different people. So when it comes to extracurriculars, I didn't do a lot in undergrad, but I tried to be intentional about the activities that I did, partake in. And part of that being the pre-law society or even ASA. And a lot of that speaks to leadership too. I don't know if Shushan, Azni, Davi, do you guys have any advice on extracurriculars as well?
Yeah, I think you're right, Alexa, and exactly along the lines of what you're saying. I think volume doesn't really matter. It's about being genuine and having quality extracurriculars if you have any. It's great to show in your application that you are genuinely interested or one or two or three things that you are actually genuinely interested in than like having 20 different things that just comes off as being like you're just listing things off.
And
Yeah.
for the LLM program, they are not very strict, but in your letter, you have to explain why would you like to do specific LLM.
Sorry, David, you can go.
So it's better if you emphasize some extracurricular activities that you have done before. But also, I would like to mention about LSAT exam, that for the LLM, there is no LSAT exam requirement. Thank you.
So keep in mind that JD and LLM are two separate processes, if anyone's confused by that. David is part of the LLM process, which is different from JD. So what I speak and what Shushan and Azni talk about are the JD side, and David has his LLM side, which is, I'm so glad that David is here to speak on that because I think it's also important as well. So
sorry, David, can you just quickly say what the LLM is? I think everyone knows that the JD is the 3-year Juris Doctorate, but could you quickly say what the LLM is?
So basically, LLM is masters for lawyers. Specifically, it's good for lawyers who don't have legal background, but who would like to take the bar exam. In order to satisfy that requirement, many Americans, they do LLM. But also for international students. Also, one of the advantages of the LLM that you can take certain courses specialized in certain type of law. For example, I'm doing business and finance law, and most of my courses are specialized, for example, in banking law, securities regulation law. So depends on what kind of lawyer you would like to be. It helps you to be more specialized in that field.
thank you, David. Business and finance could never be me, but I'm glad you're doing it and enjoying it. Okay, so those were extracurriculars. Takeaways from that is volume doesn't matter. Be intentional about the activities that you choose and showcase your skills, always your skills. Moving on to GPA.
Sorry, I'm just actually going to add one thing to what you said.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Alexa, about extracurriculars. Just an example of that would be if you're really passionate about like cooking or the arts, or for me, I was a student athlete. So it's all about just kind of like crafting your story, and we'll get to personal statements later. But if you're a student athlete, that automatically shows probably you're good at time management, you're dedicated, all those things. So just think about what you already do innately, or kind of what makes you unique, and you can extract kind of leadership or teamwork skills from that.
Yeah, very good point on that as well. Moving on to GPA and LSAT. So these are the statistics for the incoming fall 2023 class for GW. For those that may not fit these stats, I think my recommendation and my advice is that applications it's all a balancing test. Not one factor is going to be determinative. And I think it's important that if you don't meet these numbers, to make up for it in other areas. And part of that is what Ozni and what we just spoke about with extracurriculars. Perhaps there is a unique experience that you can speak to that can make up for, let's say, GPA or LSAT. And so I would say to remember, and I know I truly hate this word holistic because I heard it for my entire life throughout undergrad. And so I feel you for those that are tired of hearing that word. But I do think that it's indicative of the application process, and to remember that, you know, what one area can make up for other areas. So to keep in mind, and also remember that, you know, if you want to take the LSAT again, let's say I took it again, keep in mind, you know, the things that we just spoke about when it comes to studying, practice and deep review and analysis. You don't need to just take it once, and they don't care if you take it twice. So keeping that in mind as well. I don't know if anyone else wants to pitch in.
Yeah, I think that's totally right. I think law schools do have a holistic approach to reviewing applications, and especially if you're already out of school, that should serve as consolation that if you don't have a very high GPA, or like you're set with your LSAT score, you don't want to take it again, but it's not super high, it's not completely like ruining your application at all, because there are ways in which you can have a strong application even with scores that are lower than these medians. However, if you're still in school, and I wish someone told me this, and you still have time, work on, you know, getting your GPA up, actually study hard for your LSAT, because those are the things that are going to determine financial aid. And not, I don't mean loans, but like law schools in general will give merit scholarships based on these few statistics. And it really does make a difference, because they're not loans. You're just given a scholarship from the law school for just having a good GPA or doing well on the LSAT. So that's something to keep in mind. Like, you may get into a law school, but you'll have to pay the full price, which is fine. But also, if you can have a few points higher on your LSAT, you might get like a 50% scholarship to go to the school. So
great points. And that's also not to dismiss the importance of it too. So even though we said it's a balancing test, like, they are still important factors, you know, with a personal statement as well. So keeping in mind, if you have more time to study, always give yourself more time. If you have more time to make up for GPA, always give yourself time and take advantage of that, showcase it. And I think law schools like progression. I think that just shows, I think that also speaks to character as well. So don't be defeatist just because you don't meet certain numbers. If you have time, make up for it, show progression. If you don't, you have other areas you can make up for it as well. So there are off ramps everywhere, and take advantage of those, be intentional about those. Okay, we will open it up to questions as well at the end for those that want to talk about this more as well. Gap year.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about gap year, which just essentially means taking some time between undergrad and your JD. I took 2 years off. That was kind of during COVID times. Things were uncertain. I definitely wanted some more time to study for the LSAT. So it was a good time for me to just sit down, study really hard for like 9 months. You don't need 9 months to study for the LSAT and do well, but I took that time because I had it. And I was also a professional athlete too. So I was pursuing that. And then, yeah, COVID happened. So, but I think it's great, as you see on the slides, it can sort of just add some context to your application, and you can use that time to get more work experience, or like I said, study for the LSAT, or really kind of crystallize your why, because law school, it's 3 years, but it is difficult, challenging. You're going to have a lot of ups and downs. And if you have that why you're doing all of it from the outset, that can help with things. I think that was all I wanted to say. David, did you want to talk a little bit about LLM, gap year, or kind of what you've done?
Yeah, sure. I would definitely recommend future students to work a little bit, gain some experience, feel what do they really want to do in legal field, and then take LLM. Because again, it's a very like specialized program, and it helps you to get the information, the knowledge that you really need to be a good lawyer in a certain field. So it's very important to, I think, to work some years to understand in which field of law you would like to work, and then start your LLM, your master's. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you guys. So I don't know if you caught on, but Osnev and David are super cool. I mean, Osnev being a professional athlete, I think when I first knew that, I was like, wow, I'm so cool to be walking next to this person on campus. So everyone has a story. Everyone, a majority of people take gap year and it doesn't hurt you. I think it actually speaks to character as well and how everyone has a unique experience. I went straight through, so I'm boring and have no fun experiences to share, but I think it's just unique and tailored to every person. Okay, so that was on gap year and LLM. Moving on, this is my favorite section. I don't know why I'm super passionate about this with the personal statement, just because I just think that it's really the one moment for you guys to showcase your legal skills, legal writing, not necessarily legal, but just your writing and who you are as a person, to humanize yourself through words and on paper. So we all kind of wrote out the do's and don'ts. And the first one being telling a story when it comes to your personal statement. And in order to really get this point across, I have two anecdotes that I wanted to share with you guys to kind of demonstrate what this means to tell a story. The first one starts off with my undergraduate experience. There was one personal statement that everyone was talking about when we were going through college applications. And everyone was raving about it. And this one girl got into every school you can think of. And so I sat down and I wanted to understand what the hype was. And I ended up finding out that it's this girl talking about Costco and why every time she walked into Costco, she would look at every product, every design, nothing would go unnoticed, and her intellectual curiosity would be stimulated. And that's who she was, a naturally curious person. And this is why schools should admit her. And everyone loved it. All the schools ate it up and they all just admitted her. So when I thought about that, I kind of remembered, what is going to be, my Costco, something that's going to be so simple that you wouldn't really expect anything of. But the larger takeaway with that, her theme, her message about who she was, spoke volumes. And that ended up carrying weight. And what I think this Costco story shows is that this inclination to go with, the hardship story, something that's going to be more sensitive, understandable, and fair. But there's actually something more powerful in choosing something so simple in life, like going to Costco and making a larger point about who you are as a person and why this school should admit you. Okay, so that's the first story, Costco. The second story is actually my story about the personal statement. And, when I was writing it, I had writer's block. I didn't know what to talk about, but I remembered Costco and I wanted to think about what is going to be my Costco in life, something that, maybe not a lot of people would think of, but actually has a greater impact. And I think this is actually a full circle speaking to Armenian students and, working with the ABA and all ASA, is that I ended up writing my personal statement on my experience that occurred in my life over the span of 2 to 3 months, the quarter system at school. And I took a class called The 20th Century as the Age of Genocide. And I had a visiting professor who was of Turkish descent. And so I wrote about my experience, and the ultimate irony being a Turkish professor teaching me, an Armenian American, about genocide. And so that ended up being my Costco, something so simple that you really wouldn't expect, but this greater takeaway and theme about who I am, how I dealt with that tension, how my intellectual curiosity was stimulated, what I did to approach the situation. And, not to toot my own horn, but I guess to really showcase to you how this practice can go a long way, is that part of my personal statement ended up being displaced in the 1L orientation and was read by the dean. And so when I saw that, I was sitting on my chair and almost laughing because I couldn't help but think about Costco and how I got here. And so I think the larger takeaway is that when you find something so simple in life, it could actually speak volumes. So just remember that as you're writing the personal statement. You don't need to be digging through a treasure chest of all these ideas. It could actually be the simple things in life. But always remember that takeaway. Speak to who you are as a person. Okay, so hopefully that helps. That gets to less is more. I always think this is so key. Keeping it simple, very clear, 2 pages max, short sentences, short paragraph. And that also honestly leads to the third box of remembering who your reader is going to be. There are thousands of applications that these people need to read, and you need to make yourself stand out. And part of that is making the personal statement flow and making it very easy to read so that someone can actually enjoy it and not have to, go back and think, wait, what did this sentence just say? I didn't really understand that. So considering the volume of people reading it and also who they are as well, professors, possibly students. So ask yourself, how do I want to be perceived? Making yourself personable to people and thinking, hey, if I read this, like this person sounds really cool and excited and wants to learn, and I want her at my university. When someone reads your personal statement, they should be able to say that at the end. I want this person to be at my school because they're going to take it seriously. They're going to take advantage of all the opportunities here. Okay, so those are the do's. Feel free to interrupt, Osnev, if you have something to say.
Yeah, I'm actually just gonna add on, probably this might be a good place for it. So there's the personal statement, which is what everything that Alexa just so wonderfully talked about. And kudos to you to having your portion read by the dean. I didn't know that. And there's also a diversity statement, which I don't know if you're gonna get to that in the presentation, but diverse and what it means to be diverse is a very broad topic. And if you feel like that's something that would benefit your application, absolutely write it, but don't feel like you have to, because a forced diversity statement, if it feels forced, it's probably going to read forced. So I guess just kind of exercise your judgment to see if that would be an appropriate place to enhance your application. So it is truly optional. Some things are not really optional. That's the diversity statement is optional if you feel like that would enhance your application. That's all I wanted to say on that.
And just to highlight again what Alexa said of her incredible story, it's important to remember that there are thousands of students with very good grades and very good LSAT scores like you who are applying, and law schools need something to differentiate people by. So clearly Alexa, through her very powerful storytelling, was picked out of a group of students that may have been very much like her in terms of grades or LSAT score, but she was able to evoke interest in herself and in her story in the admissions committee. So remember that the diversity statement, as Ozzy is saying, and the personal statement are really important tools for you to speak directly to the admissions committee, and you don't get that opportunity anywhere else because generally you don't have any interviews for law school. So this is your one chance to say what you want to say and evoke the emotions that you want to evoke in the admissions committee. And really, as Alexa really hit the nail on the head, show them something instead of just telling them I'm a really good student. You want to show them and not tell them. You want to demonstrate something through a story.
Right. What's your Costco? That's my takeaway, I guess, of that. Okay. I'll quickly hit on the don'ts because I think it's honestly just opposite of what I just said. Restating your resume, please don't do it. I think it's boring. And I think a lot of readers would probably feel the same way. So yes, you can have a couple of points on your resume about what you've done and maybe you want to elaborate more on it, but make it interesting. Don't just make it the same exact thing as what you said. Don't dump. Again, being intentional about the activities that you choose to put down, the story that you choose to share. Don't just do a life dump of all these different, experiences in your life. Choose one moment that's going to highlight who you are as a person. Don't explain any academic stuff on your personal statement. That could be left to the addendum and anywhere else in the application to sort of explain that part. So you don't really need to go into that much into the personal statement. I don't know if other people disagree or maybe find it as an opportunity, but I think from what I was told, leave that separate. And lastly, puff. I think this is so easy to do, and it's honestly with college, with my training, I always remember just trying to find synonyms for fancy words and make it seem like I'm smarter than I actually am. You don't need to do that. Just be clear and honest, that will go a long way. I think the reader will realize that because they're most likely part of admissions or professors. They know legal writing. And so they'll be able to pick up, when you're kind of engaging in that tactic. So just be mindful about the word choice. Remember, always simple goes a long way, and don't stay away from legal jargon. You don't need to explain how you know the law, because I think that won't really rub well for the readers. So just keeping in mind always who your audience is. And I think this last point about the puff is just, kind of think through first before making, a controversial statement or position. And the reason why I say that is just to be intentional about, what you choose to say, because those are, words on paper, and those are applications that you're submitting and that will be shared and passed around. So just be mindful about what you choose to talk about. Okay, moving forward.
All right, what to expect I'm sorry, deadlines. Deadlines are next.
Okay, do you want me to take this one? I don't mind.
Yeah, no, you take, yeah.
Okay, so quickly, deadlines, choosing where to go. So we talked about the process of applications, studying, GPA, extracurriculars, completing it through the personal statement, and now post applications, choosing where to go. How do we figure that out? Submitting applications. Always make a list. First thing, always have this ongoing list of deadlines. Make sure that you are hitting those deadlines. And I even, recommend sending it in earlier. It's not mandatory, but I do recommend it just because I think there's, sometimes it's on a rolling basis. And I do think that it shows that, look, earlier is just better from what I've heard internally through like applications. So make sure that you're on top of deadlines. Typical deadline, March 1st. Secondly, wait till you make your final decision. Wait till you hear back from a majority, if not all the schools, so that you can make an educated decision about where you want to go. Don't just hop onto one thing. Maybe if you did binding, sure, that's an exception. But just have all the facts in front of you first so that you can figure out what best suits you. And some of the factors to consider on where to go, mainly being scholarships, location. Where do you see yourself? I chose to study in DC, and I'm practicing and going back to California. Did I expect that? No, but I'm happy with it, and I enjoy that I'm going back home. But also location is important too. I took advantage of all the opportunities in DC, and that was a place where I wanted to study law, and I knew that. I knew I wanted to leave California. So keeping that in mind and figuring out, that preference in your life. And a quick tip box, if you end up getting a scholarship to one school, but not another, you can always call and ask for a match, and figure out, if they're willing to do that. I think when it comes to these tip boxes, the real takeaway is just don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to email and reach out to schools, because you'll be surprised at how generous and how they're willing to meet you halfway if you just take that initiative to ask. And you have nothing to lose as well. So that's my little tip on that. I don't know if anyone else has anything to say. Okay.
Yeah, I was actually just gonna further your point on why location matters, is that, your professional network starts kind of day one from law school. Your peers are going to be people that will hopefully be practicing with you, or just it starts your network off, your professors, whatnot. So if you feel like you would want to stay in the area after law school, that's why location can be important. But I mean, there's of course exceptions to that. Shushan and Alexa are both going back to California, so it's not a hard and fast rule. But I was kind of between Boston, where I'm from, and DC, and I looked at where most of the graduates go after law school, and in Boston there was just more rigid. A lot of people that graduated law school in Boston just stayed there. So I wanted more options and more mobility.
Good point. Thank you for mentioning that.
Okay, now we're on the what to expect when you're in law school. After you take your LSAT, you write a beautiful personal statement, and you choose your school, hopefully GW. There's a lot of reading. I heard that on average, you get assigned up to 3,000 pages of reading per semester. That sounds like a lot, but it's 13, 14 weeks of classes per semester. So it's a lot of reading. The case method approach basically means that whenever you read a case, you're kind of just trying to distill the important stuff from it. What are the facts? What's the rule of law? How did the case turned out? Is this a decision like that came through on appeal? What's kind of the history of the decision? This is all something that you don't need to know diddly squat about until you come to law school. And even when you're in law school, it'll take a little bit of time to figure it out and really get a handle of it. But I'm confident that everyone will. And it's also a time for you to challenge yourself and kind of dissect why do you think the way you do, and be able to separate kind of what the law is and maybe what you think the law should be or could be. But it's important to have that curiosity because the law is always evolving, but it is important to kind of understand how a law came about and how it changed and evolved over time. And there is some feedback. A lot of the courses that you'll take the first year are what we call doctrinals, like contracts, criminal law, big, meaty kind of courses where your final grade will just be, at least for GW, will just be how you perform on the final examination. Some professors take into account participation and whatnot. It can feel like a lot of pressure, but everyone is in the same boat. Everyone's trying to navigate that, especially in the first year of law school. So I really encourage you all to solicit your professors for feedback and ask questions. Even if it seems obvious, I guarantee you half the class is wondering what's going on at all times. And it's really, before you get to law school, it's a good kind of time to assess why you're so successful and lean on that when you're stressed, right? Everyone is very smart. Everyone's very capable. Kind of law school has this thing of feeling like you have to start from square one, because it can feel disorienting because of how stressful and whatnot all of it is. But just lean back on what got you there, and that's going to help get you through to the end. And last point would be organization is key. And there's a lot of different ways to be organized. For some people, it's putting 10 Post-its on a desk and like, I know exactly what I have to do. Some people need their day planned out to the minute. Again, that just all goes back to knowing what works best for you before law school. And more likely than not, that's going to still be the case when you're in law school. I don't know if anyone else wanted to add to that.
Yeah, I would like to add one point. Of course, law school is very difficult. There is lots of reading. You have to work hard. But don't forget that Washington, D.C. is the capital of the United States. Many things are going on in the city. Many international organizations we have in Washington, D.C. So try to network as much as you can. Go to different international events like the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, Congress. So be involved in policy in general. Try to go to events in different embassies because it's a good chance for you to discover something more than just the law school. So that is one of the advantages going to law school in Washington, D.C. is networking. So don't forget about that. That's it.
Yeah, that's a very practical point as well. I think it's like easy to talk about what to do in law school, but it's also gotta accompany that with networking and building, your reputation professionally, personally as well. So keeping that in mind and kind of having that balance, which is a lot, but again, I think going back to organization, leaning into like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? I think is also important as well. just a quick little story to just hone in as to how important like asking questions in law school can be, and like leaning into the fact that if something doesn't make sense to you, that is totally okay, because there's probably someone right next to you that feels the same way. I'm currently in a class and I have bothered my professor all semester with questions, and that she knows my name, she knows me very well. And I'm not afraid to ask questions in that class just because I'm very confused. And so I turned to my peer, I go, I hope you don't mind about all the questions I'm asking. And she said, nope, I don't mind at all because I'm right there with you. So just remember, like, if you're feeling confused, someone is right there with you. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Take advantage. Those professors are there to teach you. And that's why you're at that school. That's why you're paying tuition to go to that school. So always ask questions. Don't be afraid. Shushan, take it away.
Sure. David was giving me a nice segue into this slide. So we really have lured you here under the false pretense of getting you to GW. No, so we really had a long discussion about what made us choose to come to GW and why GW is a really fantastic law school. And so there are plenty of other reasons, but I think these are the 5 that we found are the most valuable. The first is that it is the oldest law school in DC, which Georgetown is sad about, but that makes a really big difference, because going back to our discussion about networking, it's a really big school and it has existed since the 1800s. And there's a huge network of attorneys and some very famous ones who have gone to GW. So Alexa and I, in choosing to go back to California after graduation, although it's bittersweet and it's a little bit difficult to leave DC, especially because of all the connections that we've made here during our time that we've been here, there's still a really big community of GW attorneys in LA. And I met some over the summer while I was working in Los Angeles. So the network is really, really broad. And it's not only domestically in the US, there's a huge international network. People like David, who is who has lived abroad in different countries. There are many people like that who have come to GW and then go to their home countries after graduation. So there's a huge domestic and international network that you can really lean on. The second factor is that GW has world-renowned faculty, and we don't just say that to say that. And we'll see this in the upcoming slides, but the professors here are really leaders in the fields that they practice and the fields that they teach in. And they are example setters. They're really prolific writers and experts that people look up to. And it's really special when you think about the fact that we get to come to this school and we get to learn from them, and we get to spend time with them in office hours and have discussions with them. So it's important to keep that in mind, whether you're looking at GW or other schools, to really look at the faculty that teach at the school and how that will shape who you are as an attorney and who you are as a thinker after law school, because those people will really have a big effect on you. The third is that GW has a really big field placement program, which is basically internships or externships during the school year and during the summer. And the school really does a really good job at working with students to place students in really important internship positions. And Azniv mentioned that she was a clerk for a judge. I know Alexa has had a really impressive internships. I have personally also interned with lots of think tanks in DC. I've interned at the World Bank. So, and David was really highlighting this point. DC is an absolutely wonderful place to go to law school because of its very particular center of administration of the entire country. So there are lots of international organizations with which you can intern. There are lots of American think tanks and government agencies that you can intern with. And those are really, I think we can all agree, what set GW students apart from other students, is that we have a lot of hands-on experience before even graduating from law school. We have worked in environments in which we can learn how judges' chambers work, how administrative agencies work, how international organizations work. And then aside from those field placements, there are 19 clinics at GW. I've never been in a clinic, but those are also a really good way to gain hands-on experience. And then there are lots of different legal competitions. Alexa has been, and Alexa's very impressive. Alexa has participated in those competitions and been a prevailing participant. And there are also several study abroad partnerships and study in other city partnerships. Like there's a year or semester in New York that you can take advantage of. And then there are various, like there's a study abroad in Paris, there's one in London, or Oxford. So there are lots of different opportunities. And then the community, I think, is also really attractive at GW. And if you do come here, you will hear this all the time, that we have a really kind student body, and it really is super true. Students here are I was really surprised to see that students are super kind. Everyone is willing to help each other. People are really willing to share notes and outlines from class and help you study. Like, it's definitely not like a Legally Blonde environment. Everyone is super, super kind. And it's true. I mean, even the faculty and the administration here notice how kind the students are. And as Armenians, I think that has been particularly important to us, because we are a small, just to bring it back to ALSA, we're a very small student organization, but the other students on campus are really supportive of us, and they're really kind, and they participate in our events. Last year, during our genocide commemoration event, there were so many non-Armenian students who were present and wanted to learn more, and they wanted to commemorate the genocide with us. So that is also something to keep in mind when you're choosing, whichever law school to go to, but specifically GW has a really great community. And then the career prospects are also, again, you should keep in mind when you're applying to different law schools, but GW has really great career prospects. 93% of students are employed like after they pass the bar. And the 7% is sometimes like people don't even seek employment, or like, they're still searching, or they're in between choosing jobs. And 93% is a very high rate of employment. And students are employed at a variety of private law firms, very big law firms, small boutique law firms, and then government agencies like the Department of Justice, the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Federal Trade Commission. The GW also has a high placement rate in the Supreme Court of the United States for law clerks, it's one of the only schools that's not an Ivy League that has a placement into the Supreme Court. So really the opportunities here are endless. And I think that we all made a choice to come to this school for these factors here. And I don't think any of us regret it. And I know that David also loves GW. So maybe if he has a thing or two he wants to share.
I would like specifically mention the location of our law school. There is no school that has such an amazing location. It is in the heart of Washington, D.C., in Foggy Bottom area, and everything is nearby. It is the best location that any law school has. Students know that. Everything is very convenient, and lifestyle is amazing. For me, it was an amazing experience. So I would definitely recommend you to apply for George Washington Law School. And by the way, many law students, after passing the bar exam, they are involved in politics, in lobbying. So it's not necessarily you don't know. It's not necessarily you are going to be a lawyer. So you can be a lobbyist, you can work in politics, in international organizations. So it's a good university to start.
Yeah. And before getting to this point, Alexa and David, I was going to highlight just that. I thought of you when we did this slide. It really is true that people do go into jobs that are not like they're JD preferred jobs. So you don't necessarily need to be a lawyer to have that job, but people prefer lawyers to be in those positions. Not only is that important for us if we want to pursue those jobs, but also it's important to keep in mind that GW has a very big LLM program and a very big part-time program, so an evening student program. And even if you're not going to be an LLM or evening student, it's really valuable when these students are in your class with you, because you really learn from them. I mean, someone like David, you can really learn something from David when you're in class. He's already an attorney. He has been an attorney in other countries. Alexa and I are in a cybersecurity class, and a lot of our classmates are already attorneys. They're doing LLMs in national security. Some of them are like high-ranking generals in the army. Some of them are military lawyers. So you're really in a very academically rigorous environment all the time, and you're not only learning from your professors, but you're learning from your classmates as well. And that makes for a very fruitful time in law school, because you're not just surrounded by other 25-year-olds that know everything that you already know. You're surrounded by like 30, 40-year-olds who have a lifetime of experience and knowledge, and you can really learn from them. Okay, enough about that. Here is a map of GW. So, I mean, this is DC, but if you see where that little, Alexa, if you could point to where the school is. So that's where the law school is. Right across the street is the World Bank. 3 blocks away is the White House. All of that green lawn, the mall, is where the government agencies are. Various like think tanks are. So you are seriously like a few blocks away from some of the most important places in the US and in the world. And it really makes a very big difference, especially I know that probably many people in this Zoom are from LA, and so are Alexa and I. It makes a big difference when you don't have to drive an hour to get to an internship, and you made your decision to or to not do your internship because of its distance from you. In DC, you can be at the World Bank one semester, you could be at the Department of Justice the next semester, you could be at interning at Congress the following semester. So everything is within your reach, and GW is placed, a lot of the interns at these places are GW students during the school year. And sometimes, like, if you go to a school that's not in DC, you can do summer internships for sure, right? You can come here in the summer, you can spend the summer in DC, you could go to the Securities and Exchange Commission. That's great. That's a lot more competitive, because now you're competing for several positions with all of the US and all of the law students in the US. During the semesters, it's only DC students that are applying to those internship positions, and you have a really good chance of placing. And I think for a lot of us, Alexa, and even David, like, we've rarely been turned away from any opportunity because we go to GW. Like, GW is a really huge asset. It's really well connected. Everyone does everything within their power to make sure that you get into the internships and jobs that you want to get into. So that's that. And then this slide, I mean, these are some of the professors I have personally had. Mine is Justice Thomas. I have not been in his course. I don't know if Alex or Osniv you have, but this is, again, just to demonstrate that really our school has some pretty great faculty, and they're fantastic educators. Professor Sean Murphy, who has been representing Armenia at the International Court of Justice, and who was there like last month defending Armenia. He was my international law professor. Professor Nunziato, who is the chairperson of the TikTok Content Moderation Advisory Council. She's my First Amendment professor right now. Professor Alan Morrison, who is a founding member of Public Citizen Litigation Group, which litigates like a lot of the Supreme Court's constitutional issues. He's a professor at our school. He teaches all of the first-year students if you're in his cohort. Obviously, Justice Clarence Thomas, who is a Supreme Court justice, and then Professor Daniel Solov, who is the reason that I came to GW personally, but he is a leading expert, if not like the world's foremost expert in data privacy. I know Alexa is also in his class and has worked with him. He really, like, everyone knows him. Everyone knows who he is. He has literally written like the encyclopedia on data privacy that everyone refers to. So this is a small sampling of just the professors I've had. I had to put Justice Thomas on there because it's Justice Thomas, but everyone else has had other professors that are also leaders in their fields, and they're really great people to learn from. And just once again, to reiterate, it's very important to take these things into consideration, like faculty and what the school specializes in, when you're making a decision of what law school to apply to, because you only have 3 years and you want to make sure that you're getting the most out of this very, very big time and money investment. And it's important to look into what schools specialize in, because you want to make sure that you come out of law school prepared and that you come out of law school knowing the things that you need to know to practice in your particular field.
Just a quick note about some of these professors as well. A lot of these professors, if not, I think a majority of them, went to Ivy League law schools. And so basically what I find ironic too is that when you're in class and you're being taught by these professors, and you're being graded by them, you're at the caliber of an Ivy League education by being just taught by people educated in the Ivy League system. So I think it kind of goes like full circle, and keeping that in mind as well, that these are intelligent professors that have, you know, an incredible educational background, and they're teaching you in their classroom at GW. So just a quick note and to think about that as well.
Yeah. And let's leave it at that. And well, I guess one last thing to say is that just because, minus Justice Thomas, I don't know anything about him, but like, just because they are like these experts, or because, you know, they're Ivy League educated, that does not mean they're not personable. They're super personable, always willing to spend extra time with you outside of class, always willing to review like articles you've written or ideas you have for articles. So it really is like a very good cohort of faculty and students. And then our Armenian Law Students Association, just a very, very brief, because I know we're at the top of the hour, but we founded the Armenian Law Students Association. I was a second-year student. Alexa and Azniv were, right? You guys were first-year students. We didn't have an Armenian Law Students Association. And so there were like 4 or 5 of us on campus. We founded the association. We have an Armenian dean on campus, Dean Aram Gavur. He's the associate dean for academic. What is he? The associate academic affairs.
Yep, academic affairs.
So he really encouraged us, and he was really supportive of us founding our own Law Students Association. And our presence on campus, I think, has been very important, given like the political climate in Armenia and Artsakh. We have done a lot of advocacy. We have hosted a lot of events about these the political conflict at Artsakh and Armenia, but also other kinds of events that are just honoring our culture and our heritage and introducing the law school to who we are as Armenians. So, I mean, we can send over a link to this article that we have written about us in the Armenian Mirror Spectator with our follow-up email if you're interested in reading, because I don't want to go on. But again, like going back to David's point, I don't think that we would have had the opportunities that we've had to host like the Library of Congress, Armenian librarians, to meet Baroness Caroline Cox, to meet with the Gatorikos, to host David Babayan, who's the former foreign minister of Artsakh. We would never have had those opportunities if we were not situated in DC. So I think we've had some really fantastic opportunities from being at GW.
Right. It's kind of like we're a stop on their DC tour, right?
Yeah.
When these people come to DC, they'll go to Congress and then come to us, and they might go to Georgetown. I don't know if they remember to go, but so it's just a special place. And
the administration at our school is highly supportive of us as Armenian students. I think there's like 10 of us on campus out of the 1,000 students that there are. Something like that, right? There's like 1,800 students or something. Like there's a lot of people on campus. We are 0.001% of those students on campus, yet everyone knows who we are. Everyone knows our faces and our names. They're very supportive of us. And it's really heartwarming to see, especially being in a place where there was no Armenian Law Students Association 3 years ago. And like no one really knew anything about Armenians other than that Dean Gavur is an Armenian. So it's really fantastic. And I think it's worthwhile to apply to this school because he will, I mean, we might not be here, but Dean Gavur will be here. He's very supportive. He's a really great, advocate and ally to have.
Thank you, Shushan, for that wonderful breakdown of GW and why you should come. We have listed here some internship and opportunities that the ABA has that we think would be worthwhile to consider and look into. And now we'll open it up to questions. Don't be shy.
Clearly, we're very passionate and eager. We've talked to you guys for an hour. We probably could go for another hour. So we'd love to hear from you all.
Hi.
Okay.
Hello.
I accidentally joined a little late because I was just doing something before, but I don't know if you guys went over this, but what do you have to say about letters of recommendation? Like, should I get letters of recommendation from like a specific subject, like English? Just any I just have a question about that.
I can chime in here if that's okay. I think it's important to get letters of recommendation from professors who really know who you are and know you as a student and your skills as a student. I don't think it matters what subject it's in. It could be math. It doesn't really matter. They just need to be able to know you well enough to write something that is genuine and compelling for the admissions committee. I had professors that were in a variety of different subjects, so it doesn't matter.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Agnesa. So thank you for the presentation. It was really helpful. So my question is about LLM. So I guess David will cover it. So I was a little bit lost, and I'm so happy that I could find someone who has Armenian background. So I have bachelor's degree in law in Armenia, in French University of Armenia. So I have both the French diploma and Armenian diploma, and I have a master's degree from the same university. And I want to apply to I haven't decided yet the university, but for the LLM program. And I want to know, can I practice law without GD in the USA?
So yes, you can. Once you pass, graduate LLM program from George Washington Law School, for example, you can take, if you are not licensed in Armenia, you can take bar exam in New York City, in New York State in general. But if you are licensed attorney, for example, in Armenia, you can also take bar exam in California too. Because in California, foreign licensed attorneys are allowed to take the bar exam. But most of the international students who want to take bar exam in the United States, the requirements are very, very little, just 6 credits of JD classes to sit for the New York State bar exam. Most of the students are going to take New York State bar exam. So after passing the bar exam, of course you can practice in the United States. So it's like a shortcut. Yeah.
So in order to pass the bar exam, I need to have GD program, GD diploma.
No, you don't have to have the diploma. So basically, you open an account with New York State Bar Examination Board. Ask your law school from Armenia to send your transcript to that board, and after graduation, you kind of cure your legal education. After graduating the law school, you will be eligible to take the bar exam in New York State. So
step one, just to be clear, step one, you need to have an LLM, correct?
So once you are enrolled, for example, in George Washington Law School LLM program, they specifically have a program for LLM students to take the bar exam, and they give you all the necessary information step by step how to apply, what courses to take, what like bar preparation, barbery, themis, what kind of course to take to pass the bar exam. They help me with everything.
Can
So
you take the bar exam as an LLM student in any state or only New York and California?
no, not in any state. Only you can take either in New York or in California. But for example, if you want to take in Washington, D.C., you have to take more JD classes. You have to have more credits from, for example, for New York State, you have to have just, for example, I'm doing business and finance law. Most of my courses are in business and finance, but I took corporations, which is 4 credits, and evidence, which is 7 credits. So it's enough for me to be eligible to take the New York State bar exam. So they once Agnesa is enrolled, for example, at George Washington Law School, they will give you all the guidelines. It's very easy.
And in addition to what David is saying, Agnesa, it may be helpful to reach out to the Armenian Bar Association itself. We'll be sending a follow-up email with all of these contacts, but they may have a better like a list or a better guidance that you could speak with someone. And I know Tallinn just jumped off the call, but we'll send information after this call, because I know, for example, in California, you don't have to have a JD. You just have to, study for the bar with a licensed attorney. This is how like Kim Kardashian is becoming an attorney. Good luck to her. But there are different ways. And so we'll send some contact information to you, including David's email.
If you want more information for Agnesa, you can also take JD. And because you already have your degree from Armenia, you don't have to do that your JD within 3 years. You are eligible to do your JD within 2 years. It's not only in GW, I think in every law school, because you have already law degree from a foreign country, you are eligible to graduate from JD within 2 years. So
Okay, thank you so much. And I have another question about LLM requirements. So, should I prove my English proficiency?
So if you have 1 or 2 years education in English language, no. If you don't have, yes, you have to take, I think, TOEFL exam to like requirement. But if your education, like you did like masters or something in English, there is no requirement.
Okay, thank you so much.
You can just, if you have any question, you can email me.
Okay, how can I find your email? So you'll send me, right? After this. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Or you can email one of, I see Alexa, Shushan, and Azniv's email there. If you email them, they will forward it to my GW email account. Gmail account.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
Hi. First of all, thank you so much for the event. It was very informative. My question is, I've noticed that in the last few years, more and more law schools have been accepting GREs in lieu of LSATs. And I was wondering what your thoughts were in terms of submitting an application with a GRE score rather than an LSAT score.
Yeah, that's actually, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I think that like the normal route is just taking the LSAT, but GRE is definitely an option and that doesn't hurt you at all. So I think whichever exam you choose to take and submit, I don't think it really matters. I think it's really just the score. So yeah, I don't think law schools have an issue with that or a preference.
And if I can add, Alexa is totally right. And you should not feel bad or be afraid to reach out to the admissions offices of particular schools you're interested in applying to. They're there for you. They're there to ask questions. I think it's an underutilized resource. I think people don't, reach out or talk to admissions offices, but it might be worthwhile to just call them and ask, like, am I going to be disadvantaged for submitting a GRE? And like, what is the advantage to taking the GRE as opposed to the LSAT?
Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? No one has a question about Costco?
I just got my membership recently and I'm kind of craving like a churro or some of their pizza.
Now you won't forget my story.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll thank you every time I go to Costco.
Well,
If I could just say one last thing before we end. And we can't really see anyone, or like we don't really know people's backgrounds. I'm assuming from people's email addresses that a lot of people are joining from Los Angeles. And Alexa and I are also from Los Angeles, and we went to California undergraduate schools. And for us too, like we applied to California schools, but we also like took the chance and applied to GW and other East Coast schools. I think it's important to consider all of your options and not be afraid to go out of your comfort zone and apply to schools that you are not necessarily familiar with or haven't heard about, or are out of your state or out of your the comfortable area that you would like to stay in, because you will be surprised at the personal growth that you will live while you're at these schools. So it doesn't hurt to just submit an application or two outside of where you were already planning to, in addition to what you were already planning to apply to, because you really don't know where that will take you, and what kind of effect it'll have on your life. And I know that we have tried really hard at GW to create a community for Armenian students to feel comfortable, to feel like they have a community, and so that we have a safe space to be with each other on campus and to host events. So, and I know like Georgetown also has an Armenian Law Students Association. Our American University also has Armenian students. So don't be afraid to find people on LinkedIn, to find us on LinkedIn, to find students at Georgetown on LinkedIn that are, if you're interested, that are Armenian, and speak to them about their experience and whether they, what recommendations they have for you and applying to those schools. So I guess all I'm saying is like, go out of your comfort zone and don't be afraid to make connections.
well, thank you guys for joining us and participating. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We are always here as a resource.
So
And
I'm sorry, for Agnesa, I put my Gmail address in chat.
Yeah, I have already copied that. Thank you.
go team. I love this. Starting a family. Okay, that's amazing. Well, thank you guys again, and we will keep in touch and forward you guys our contact information. Good luck with finals.
Happy holidays, everyone. Happy New Year. See ya.
Hi, everyone.